All
Live.
right, folks, welcome to this week's episode of The Left, the Right, and the Absurd. Tonight, once again, we're doing a three-person episode for the time being. We may have a fourth showing up. Who really knows? I mean, you guys have probably gotten used to it at this point. Hopefully, our cast will be back to normal soon. The holidays just really mess things up when people are back home, know. Um, so tonight we got a topic that we think is much needed, and for a lot of you that already know this, it's just going to be an interesting topic to listen to or to be able to show your friends. But to those that don't know, tonight we are going to be discussing why the USSR was not communism and
We're not
why,
restricted to just the USSR, though, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we're
Okay.
also
But,
talking.
however, Stalin was a good Christian who didn't do anything wrong. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding.
And
But,
then we're going to be discussing why National Socialism is not socialism.
come at me, Scotty M. Come at me.
Yeah.
Bite your skinny little fucking ass.
All right. So who wants to take this topic off?
uh,
Matt, I feel like you're a really good person for this.
go.
All right. I mean, as to why it was not communist, it's pretty simple if you've actually read the original works of like Marx and Engels. Because by their own definition, communism is considered a society without class, a state, or currency. So it's post-monetary, and pretty much the USSR, Maoist China, Cuba, the DPRK, etc., all have characteristics.
Of bourgeois society left in them.
Sure, yes, that's a good way of describing it. And
And
now, this
I
is
would
also
like to
not
make the
saying.
argument that I do honestly believe that the USSR was a socialist worker state up until maybe after Khrushchev.
I was just about to say, I would say that the USSR was a socialist state, as was the People's Republic of China. Obviously not anymore, but yeah.
Capitalist raiders.
Hmm.
But I would also like to say that when it comes to the DPRK, I would say I have mixed feelings, but Juche is really shitty. But I would say in terms of against imperialism, they do need somewhat of, I don't really say support, but more sympathetic.
An understanding.
Yeah,
Okay.
but again, because from what I understand, that a lot of Marxist-Leninists heavily criticize Juche, but they stand with the DPRK against Japanese imperialism, Western imperialism.
All right. And the other interesting thing you mentioned Juche, and if you ask me, it's sort of idealist, and it is anti-Marxist in a way. I mean, it's you notice the cult of personality surrounding the Kims. You notice
Yeah.
they call it. I believe it was a socialism of our kind and a man-centered socialism,
Yeah.
which are all idealist in
It-
nature because they put man above the material conditions.
Yeah, and can the DPRK get back to a more ideal, well, I don't want to say ideal, but more preferable Marxist-Leninist or just a social state in general? Maybe at some point,
I
but
think it's also worth saying that the whole cult of personality thing and the, I guess, like, reverence for the leadership there also could be cultural,
yeah,
and it's not necessarily a product of.
and when they say cult of personality, that's a huge criticism for like social states in general.
Yeah.
But we also have that in the United States when it comes to
Look at
founding
our
fathers,
national landmarks.
the founding fathers, Abraham Lincoln, and things like that. So it's not just limited to them. And I mean, in the same way, it's these men who carried out a revolution for what they consider to be their liberation, their freedom, and that's what America sees. the founding fathers as.
Yeah.
So it's.
I mean, I guess to get back though to just what makes a society communist is, I guess, the question we should be answering.
Well, I would say I was gonna argue because since they were most Marxist states that did exist were Marxist-Leninists, and they believed from the Leninist standpoint that in order to achieve a communist society, they must use a vanguard
Vanguard Party.
to guide from what they would call capitalist society or bourgeois society to socialism and then to communism. That they need the state to rid of capitalist ideals and reactionaries and things like that.
Plus, you have to take into consideration, their material conditions. Pre-industrial Russia was extremely backward, and it's of course, they had, authoritarianism rose from that. You can't expect a society as backwards as pre-industrial Russia to just jump straight into.
I would say that
communism.
I would like to say that I would argue that Lenin and maybe even Stalin were less authoritarian than the Tsar. I would make that assumption. But when it comes to did Stalin kill so and so amount of people, I would say overall no.
And that's not saying you're a Stalinist or whatever. That criticism is often thrown. That word's thrown around a lot.
It's just a buzzword.
Yeah.
Cole, you have anything to say? Because it's just kind of quiet.
Well, I think a lot of our
listening to
our understanding of the concepts of communism, or misunderstandings, I guess I should say, come from our education system that actually goes out and teaches us that these societies are communist. And most kids coming out of high school, stuff like that, don't actually know what communism entails.
Yeah, I mean, it is taught that
Fucking McCarthy.
that it was a communist state. They weren't. They may have. Their ideal was to achieve communism, but a communist state is contradictory in terms. They're a socialist worker state, but they're not communist states.
They never achieved full communism. Although I believe in the People's Republic of China under Mao, there were certain areas of the countryside that did achieve communism.
Is there something representative to communism?
Yeah.
I would say. From what I've read is that, because I know what you're talking about, I don't know exactly where it is, but the only thing that would be somewhat left of quote unquote bourgeois society would probably be that that they use somewhat of a currency to trade materials between each other. That would probably be the only thing left, but other than that, that would probably be the best example that we could have of these types of budgets leading to communism, even though Mao had attempted to achieve a full communist society, and Mao did kind of get shitty after 1968.
The anarchists will bring up free territories of Ukraine as an example of communism under Mao. So I was wondering what you guys had to think about that.
Somewhat. Yeah.
I don't know how long it lasted, but I'm pretty sure it lasted less than 100 days. I could be completely wrong about that.
I'm not
sure. Don't quote me on it, but
there was a lot of things that did go right and a lot of things that did go wrong.
Yeah.
I would say it's more of temporary, but again, there was a lot of things that there's fighting between the Black Army and the Red Army.
Yeah.
And disagreements and food shortages and another thing I want to bring up when it comes to food shortages, a lot of people say it was mismanagement of resources, but there were also Ukraine and Russia
yeah.
were also coming out of a feudal age, and they're trying to industrialize.
Yeah, they're coming out of feudal age
And,
after a huge civil war that left 9 million people dead and crops destroyed.
yeah, because a lot of people just like to say this, like they
Matt,
were in the same
Yeah.
con.
Yes, Cole?
one thing that you said to that one guy when he talked about misallocating resources and used Russia as an example.
Yeah. Should I bring that up or what?
I think that would be a good thing for you to bring up.
Yeah, Adam probably knows about the whole Kulak situation too, right?
Yeah, I know I don't know a lot, but from what I've read, I could be wrong. I can't say too much, but the kulaks were petty bourgeois farmers withholding crops to inflate prices so that they could
That's
sell them.
pretty much exactly it, yeah.
Yeah, so that they could sell them. And what had happened is that the Soviet Union had decided to force collectivize it so that they wouldn't be doing this, so that people could, actually eat.
Because, I mean, there was already a famine occurring because
Yeah.
of the things we just mentioned. So it was, in a way, and I know I'm going to, a lot of
it was a good
capitalists,
thing.
a lot of right-wingers will, really hate me for saying this, but what made an already occurring famine worse was a pseudo-capitalist, actually, I don't even know if I call it an economy, but, the NEP, by Lenin's NEP, New Economic Policy.
The transition that was supposed to be a bit from capitalism to socialism
Yeah.
was the NEP, so that they would have something to stimulate the rest to feel, not just go into the social society, but to try and get it to a point where they wouldn't have a downgrading capitalist society into a because you have to. It's hard to explain, but so that they would somewhat be okay to transition. And they would have to
essentially,
NEP.
Lenin knew that to have socialism, you first have to have capitalism.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's what he thought at the time.
Yeah, I'm not really going to go much over Stalin's policies because there's a lot of things that I do agree with and things that I do disagree with, but I don't really believe that he just sent everyone that he didn't like to a gulag.
All right.
And he wasn't the only person. He wasn't the sole leader of the Soviet Union. He wasn't the only one making all decisions no matter what. He was a part of a committee and things like that where they made decisions.
I actually, at one point in my life, I actually lived with a family that left Russia, and their statement of why they left was due to the ending of the USSR. They actually preferred how things were back then. Granted, the relative was a big part of the government, so they kind of had it a little easier.
Because again, after I would say after Khrushchev, that things really started to go down because there was a lot of reforms that were done, and that they were trying to somewhat compete with other capitalist societies.
I mean, okay, here's an interesting thing that I just kind of thought of one day, and I don't know. I want to get Adam's opinion on this. Yours too, Cole, but yeah. Could you see the argument that the fact that the USSR did end up where it is today as an example as to why Stalin was, in a sense, correct about purging the party of capitalist ways of thinking?
Somewhat, and a lot of people still like to critique Stalin for purging the party, but I just want to say I don't blame Stalin for ice-picking Trotsky. I don't blame him at all, because honestly, I will just say Trotskyite ideals and positions are very wrong,
We should get a pleb on here sometime. I would love to have that.
And I will, and
Because he's a really smart guy, but, he's a trot, so.
yeah, I'll pick one.
Actually, I don't know if he's still a trot. He might be a Bourdieuist, I think.
Are we talking Grayson here?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a left comp.
But, I guess, back on topic. What else to say about communism and not communism?
The purge of the party and Stalin, and again, he did some things wrong, he did other things right, and one of the things that he did do wrong is that he stopped at East Germany. I'm making a lot of jokes when I should be serious, but I will say that people like saying, like, again, I'm going back to the death of, like, quote unquote 60 million. A lot of people did die due to famine and war, but it was mostly that. It wasn't just execution squads and sending random people to gulags and prisons, and so.
All right.
We should probably talk about Mao.
Yeah. Well, what about him?
Did you know that he was actually an anarchist in his youth?
I did not. Is that actually true?
Yeah. He was
Okay.
an anarchist. He did, like, I can't remember. I think it was Kropotkin.
I'm a Kropotkin.
But I would say Mao was pretty good until 1968. And a lot of people like to, again, say the Cultural Revolution was bad. And the reason that even happened was that they were trying to get basically the Chinese bourgeois society out and institute a more proletariat-centered society, somewhat, from what I know. But it's a lot of people say, like, Chinese culture was good, but it was also kind of harmful to the actual peasants, because it was seen as that they were supposed to know their place in society, and the intellectuals were up there, and they were supposed to know their place, and they shouldn't challenge it and things like that. That was the point to get rid of.
Well, I've already talked a lot about Cuba on here, but Adam, what about you? Or Cole?
Cuba, I would say, actually isn't that bad.
Yeah.
They did a very successful revolution. Whether you agree with Che or Castro's policies is debatable, but I would say for what they had and what they did isn't that terrible. It could be better, but I'm really hoping that where Cuba is right now, I would rather them stay where they are than rather make the mistake that China did and insert market reforms. And that goes back to China with Deng Xiaoping being a fuckwad. But
I think Cuba's a really interesting topic. From what I know, I don't agree with everything.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't agree with everything.
There were some great aspects of what they've done, and part of why I think we demonize Cuba a lot more than we should, but I think many leftists also glorify it much more than it should be.
Yeah.
But I do see that a lot of the issue with Cuba stems from how set back they've been due to embargoes and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're also, because they're basically stuck in 1958.
The U.S. embargo has really fucked things up because a lot of countries that we aid, were the U.S. to find out that some other country that we're allied with has aided them, their aid would drop quicker than a fucking bowling ball.
Yeah, they would cut aid to certain countries, and again, I would say the USA kind of fucked over a lot of social stuff that was going on in South America at the time. because there
Oh,
was
yeah.
a lot of social stuff going on. I think we've already talked about this, but
Salvador Allende.
yeah, so I heard it. And there's other socialist places and there's groups who
Pretty
that are
much,
yeah
pretty much every single part of South America we have fucked over at some point.
yeah
And that's somewhat of the reason why Castro was so, quote unquote authoritarian, is because he knew the history of South America and what had happened there,
And
especially
US.
in the yeah.
you guys
Like
want to
I
talk
mean,
about Pol Pot?
he warned Salvador Allende that if you come to power through democratic means,
You're gonna
the
die.
U.S. will overthrow you, and it's exactly what happened.
You guys want to talk about Pol Pot?
Sure, or Enver Hoxha, like.
I can't say much about Enver Hoxha, but I know someone who could, but I can't get her on here.
I know exactly what you're talking about. All right, but go ahead.
Pol Pot was not a socialist. He was not a communist. He did not call himself a supporter of Mao until after Mao had died. The things that he did were completely against socialist means. He was an opportunist, is what he was. Anyone who legitimately defends Pol Pot I would say, is a pseudo-intellectual. That they don't really know what they're talking about. Because Pol Pot, I would argue, it was anti-communist for what he did. He killed a lot of people that were completely unnecessary, against the ideals of what communism was about. He didn't even institute a socialist state. So, and we could talk about Vietnam and Uncle Ho. You have anything about this?
Oh.
Yeah. You have anything to say about Ho Chi Minh?
A lot of the Asian provinces like that, I don't honestly know a whole lot about, so I don't have much to add here.
From what I know, is that he's not very talked about very much, but from what I know, he didn't do anything terrible, and he did kind of kick the USA's ass, so there's that.
Great anti-imperialist, but yeah.
Yeah. We want to talk about Enver Hoxha.
Honestly, yeah, I don't know all that much about him either, but
All I know is bunkers and that he was against social imperialism.
yeah.
And from what I know is that he had a Stalin fetish.
hmm I had also heard him called pretty dogmatic, but yeah, that's really all I know.
Again, I don't know much. I know someone, we know who we could bring on to talk more about, but I don't think she would be up for that right now because she's probably doing something.
Yeah.
But is there any other socialists we should talk about?
I guess just back to the original topic.
Yeah.
If there's anything else left to say, we can just move on, though.
Yeah, I mean.
I think now would be a good transition point into the whole topic of National Socialism and why.
Yeah.
Calling it that is just fucking ridiculous to begin with.
Scotty N. Nazi Germany was socialist because of the color red, apparently.
Yeah, there's been so many good debunkings of
him.
Him and just that claiming that National Socialism is the same thing as Marxist socialism.
Again, this has been said a lot of times when it comes to national socialism. Like, it's associated with so and so that they use similar symbolism. But the reason they did was to get with the working class people of Germany to support them, because these other parties and socialist parties were in favor of these people trying to get up there. And National Socialism, no matter what anybody says, was inspired. Well, Hitlerite National Socialism was inspired by Mussolini fascism, Italian fascism.
I don't know anything about Strasserism, but at least I don't know much. It's more left wing.
I don't.
But
I won't. That's still.
It's hard to even call it left wing, but yeah.
Would it be? I definitely agree with what Adam was saying. Was that it was a ploy to get more people to come to their side in order to get further support. It was a whole propaganda ploy, I guess you could call it,
Yeah,
which was something extremely common in Nazi Germany.
they did a lot of propaganda things, like
The whole thing about Hitler being a vegetarian was
yeah, it was propaganda.
What was it? Joseph Goebbels was
the minister of propaganda. They made a lot that makes Hitler seem like he was above the average man, I would say.
They wanted the whole vegetarian concept was a ploy to make, as a lot of people don't know, Hitler and Gandhi were actually friends, believe it or not.
Yeah.
A lot of us have seen. A lot of people don't actually believe it and think it's a sham. But Gandhi actually wrote a letter to Hitler saying, "Don't fucking do this." But the whole ploy with Goebbels painting Hitler as this vegetarian similar to Gandhi was to create this air that he was above the average man. And that was really, Hitler had this whole obsession with the cult to begin with.
The what?
The cult.
Oh. He did,
He had this obsession with becoming above the typical human, above man.
Yeah, and before, like, I know some are saying that's not true. I mean, there is some stuff of him reading into the occult, and there is some stuff with the Nazi Party, and some people in it being interested in the occult. There is documentation there. Whether that they use all this secret occult stuff is, yeah, we're not gonna go there. I don't believe that either.
No,
But,
well, I mean, the NSDAP was originally an occult society, I think called the Thule Society.
I'm not sure, but
And wasn't one of the prime things that Hitler searched for before coming into power a relic called the Spear of Destiny?
I don't know.
I don't know about that.
The Spear of Destiny was a spear that pierced Christ when he was on the crucifix, and the whole there's all these legends behind it about people carrying it into battles. The idea that Hitler
You were
further the
cutting
Nazi
out.
parties.
But I know from like when it comes into like fascism, they do have a thing for spirituality. So to say that Hitler was an atheist or anything, that's just completely wrong because he was a fascist. And they have a huge thing with spirituality, and he did do a lot of things that involved the Catholic Church. So.
Which I guess you could also argue that due to the fact that it was metaphysical and non-materialistic.
Yeah.
That's another example as to why, Marxist socialism and National Socialism were so far from each other.
Yeah, I mean, again, is that he also did wipe out a bunch of other socialist parties.
Yeah.
And again, like, this goes back to what Scott again, that he was just trying to compete to be on top, and that he was trying to get into power via democratic means, basically calling them social democrats, or democrats, whatever. No. He wiped them out because they opposed the Nazi Party, and because that they were, quote-unquote, against the German people, not because he was trying to wipe out competition. He also privatized a lot of things. So.
And just nationalizing an industry does not make a country socialist.
Yeah.
I think another important thing to do is clarify what Mussolini's definition of fascism was, and it was total cooperation between state and
corporate.
Yeah, corporations. That's
they
what I was. Sorry,
wanted,
I lost it there.
They wanted class cooperation or class cooperation or whatever, and that it was basically corporatocracy, but with a more state saying things, but it was also about cooperation between the upper class, the lower class, and the middle class, and
Not about
also,
abolishing class.
yeah, and most I would say most socialists are for abolishing the class system. So, but they want a complete class cooperation to keep people where they were. Not I don't want to say that, but to I wrote this thing on fascism earlier and it's slipping my mind, but the economics of fascism are not socialist. Again, third position is the economics, where it would at any point where it would better the economy, whether that be through privatization or nationalization, whenever it would benefit the economy, that's when they would do it. Not because they were socialist and nationalization equals socialism. To whatever action would better the economy is what they would do, whether it be privatization or nationalization. So. Anything else?
Cool.
I'm trying to think here, so it might be a minute if anyone else has anything to say.
Yeah, I was just gonna say more about Hitler. We're not gonna get. I don't want to get into the entire Holocaust thing. Because I know some Holocaust denier or quote unquote revisionist will say is like that's not true. Look at this such and such and such.
Look at this picture. There's no smokestacks here.
Yeah. But it does. I was going into the Mein Kampf thing. I know a lot of people like to quote Mein Kampf as to prove that Hitler was a socialist, but this kind of proves that they never read it. They just cherry-picked quotes from it, because in it also talks about why they chose black, white, and red to relation to the German Empire, and again it goes back to stealing leftist symbolism.
So more propaganda, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, it was to attract people to their meetings, to get them to become National Socialists.
And that's the one thing I think we should bring up is the fact that Hitler was actually democratically elected.
Yeah. Unlike Mussolini, where he kind of just walked up and said, "Hey, I'm in power now."
I actually think this is something that we should bring up, the whole democratically elected thing.
I don't really know.
Well, I thought it only got like 30-some% of the votes.
I don't know how many votes Hitler actually received, but I know at some point this goes into Reichstag, where they burned it down and blamed the communists and anarchists or whatever. That goes back to eliminating the Communist Party and things like that. But I don't really know much about his election. So.
Yeah, I don't know much about it either.
The whole thing, I just wanted to discuss how terrible, how just because someone is democratically elected, it doesn't mean it's a good choice. And I think that's a great thing. I think this would actually be a great way to talk a little bit about our current election. And something that's popped up recently, I think this is a good topic to discuss. The woman that was kicked out of the Trump rally.
Mm-hmm.
Have any of you guys seen the footage of that?
I have, yes.
I mean, to relate it to something, the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw what was happening to the woman was the Westboro Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Shaming people. Like, there was the guy standing there in her way as the security guard was escorting her out, holding the fucking sign in her face, and he was obviously saying something, but we couldn't hear it. But you just have to think how degrading those people were being to someone who. Does anyone know why she was there? Was it to?
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that.
It was from what I know, it said something like, "This is what a Muslim looks like," or something along those lines, to say, "No, Mr. Trump, we're not all
Terrorists.
strap bomb to my chest, go kaboom type people. We're peaceful." And I wanted to bring up, one of my friends converted to Islam back in December, and he has a tutor, and he brings his Quran to school. And people are saying, is that the Jihad Bible? Or they'll even call them kaboom. No one, I mean, they say, oh, it's just jokes, but it proves how Islamophobic American society is, and how fucked up. How one little thing like that.
Is your friend Arabic?
No, he's
Okay.
Hispanic.
I mean, it's easy to confuse the two.
But
Uh,
it's something like that, is that it makes it easier for someone like Trump to say, let's destroy all Muslims, or not destroy, but ban them from getting into the country. And
well,
I mean,
and look at the people that we have. I recently posted something that I saw that a family member of mine had reposted, and it was a picture, and going along with it, I can't remember the exact quote. I still have it saved, so I'm trying to find it really quick. But I just thought it was absurd. There was it was a quote from a person, and it was a picture that it's a child, and it says, "I've waited all my life," and underneath it is someone in a military uniform with the words "kill 'em all" on the back of their helmet, saying to kill you.
I have
And
seen that, yeah.
the person in this post said, "This speaks volumes for my generation, who had to watch the Twin Towers fall and then wait nearly a decade to be able to retaliate. This picture is too real. Never forget. Remember the fallen, honor the living."
oh yeah, I remember you posting something like that.
And it's just completely absurd to me, because what people don't realize is, yeah, we lost 3,000 something innocent people's lives.
Versus the
Twin
almost, has it reached a million yet?
The conservative estimate is 500,000.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's the
I mean, if we're going for
conservative
body to body, I think I don't know. I think we'd say we've reached maybe like a baby step. I mean,
I'm almost certain it's the liberal estimate
it's
is
like 1 million.
0.5 million.
Yeah, I know, because I remember, like, this isn't me being the edgy kid, but we were talking about the American flag and what it stands for in English class, and I said I don't believe it stands for freedom, and I brought up the Iraq War, and I said somewhere around like 800,000 innocent people were killed from U.S. bomb runs and soldiers alike.
And that's the thing. That's not even including the fact that we've cut off resources to places like this and how many people have died due to our sanctions on these countries.
I think 500,000 was just the sanctions alone.
And the fact that we have... It makes it more absurd, because growing up in high school, most of my friends were Middle Eastern. And yeah, we used to make jokes between each other, but we all knew we were kidding, and it was always between friends, never anything else. But the actual, like, rampant Islamophobia that I see nowadays, and my friends, the fact is, they're just Middle Eastern. They're actually, most of them were Christian.
Yeah.
But you have to think, how many of these people that we're demonizing are Christian folks from the Middle East? And how many of these people are we wrongly demonizing? And we're going out here and fighting in these wars against these people, but we're just creating a bigger problem.
And that goes into, like, most of the Muslims are actually not even in the Middle East. They're in Asia. They're mostly in Asia, not the Middle East, because in places like Syria, yes, even in Syria, there's a good Christian population there.
Lebanon is 50% Christian.
Yeah, and it's not, and believe it or not, Israel's a part of the Middle East. And I mean,
What's Israel? I only know Palestine.
But I'm just saying that a lot of people from the Middle East may or may not be Muslim, and they shouldn't be degraded just because they're a Muslim. You don't know, because again, there's even fighting between the sects of Islam, like Sunni and Shia.
And there's a difference between criticizing Islam for being irrational than just being Islamophobic, I guess.
There's a difference between saying, wow, this is fucked up, and, hey, we should glass the Middle East.
Yeah.
And I want to bring up something here about how one of our biggest allies in the Middle East is also one of the greatest
offenders.
Saudi Arabia?
Yeah. They've had more beheadings than groups like ISIL has. I think I saw recently they've already
in 1 year they killed more people by beheading than ISIS has ever killed.
I think this year alone they've killed some 40-odd people.
Yeah.
And these are people we're allied with. I mean, if that doesn't go to show you something right there, that we're willing to sit here and support countries like that will kill their own people through such barbaric and... Granted, I don't support killing people in general. It's fucking retarded to try and teach killing's wrong through fucking killing the guy.
I mean, that should just go to show, like, you hear the outcry. Where's the outcry for Saudi Arabia? But then people will turn around, and all of a sudden, there's a bunch of moral outcry against Iran. It shows that it's economic and that it's economically driven.
Yeah, it's economically driven, and it's also, whether it not even economically, it could just be ideologically, because we don't stand for the United States. They may have the same economic system as the United States, but they may not be allied with them, but they're still opposed and seen as enemies and against. So.
And I think that's an issue with a lot of, pretty much most of our current economic system. I mean, even on the quote-unquote left side, aka people like Hillary and Bernie that are just like 2 clicks fucking left from
they're
fucking Marco Rubio and shit like that. It's both sides. There's no real differences between the two.
Yeah. Do you guys want to talk about Bernie in a bit?
Are we pretty much done with our original topic?
I think we are, for the most part. I think we should move on to some more current stuff. I think that really helps us out here.
Alright.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of people are calling, like, I mean, I would say because Bernie Sanders isn't really much of a socialist, and he's more appealing to younger...
As most people would call them, or us, I guess you should say, millennials.
Yeah, and he's appealing more to them than anything else. But he doesn't really have many socialist policies, if any, and having free health care and free college is not a socialist policy.
I think I think with our discussion tonight, we have a very good way of showing about how socialist Bernie Sanders is.
Yeah, and he
Bernie
calls himself
Sanders
a
is
democratic socialist, and I have a friend who was a democratic socialist, and he doesn't know what the hell he is now. But even when he called himself one, when he told one of his friends that he was a democratic socialist, and he said, "Oh, you like Bernie Sanders," he literally screamed because he hates Bernie Sanders that much. Because what they see as democratic socialism is completely different.
I could see, like, you could call Bernie Sanders a democratic socialist, or he can call himself that, as if he was like a Hugo Chavez. That's
Yeah,
pretty much what I would call a democratic socialist.
Bernie
yeah,
Sanders is to socialism what Kropotkin is to capitalism.
yeah. Um, if anything, I would say at best he's a social democrat.
Which
That's
doesn't say much, like.
yeah. I mean, the social
Whoa.
democrats have gotten really liberal, but at least they have something left. But that's just at best. I, I mean, at worst, which is really what he is, he's just a liberal who thinks he knows what socialism is, and just because he calls himself a socialist does not make him a socialist. Just like someone calling himself. Duh.
Yeah, I think that's an extremely good point. To I think to really put into example what Bernie Sanders is he's a vehement supporter of a welfare state similar to that of the Nordic capitalist model, utilizing high taxes in order to pay for public things such as schooling and stuff like that. Uh, well, yeah, you get to go to school for free. Once you're out of school and paying taxes, you get butt fucked.
Yeah. I mean, even like a welfare state alone is not socialist. I mean, it can be argued that socialists have had welfare states, it's and if they do argue for one, it's not as a permanent thing. It's just I don't know if it's just as a temporary thing to make the current capitalist society more livable, not as a permanent thing.
It's a transitory state.
Yeah, and even then, a lot of socialists didn't even have welfare states. I mean, the Nordic model can collapse really easily, and I would say the Nordic model should stay where it is, and it shouldn't be applied elsewhere.
Well, I think that is the exact reason that we're hearing so much about uh, the Nordic countries being so scared of Syrian refugees. It's not due to like how they can act or stuff like that. It's due to their economic well-being.
And like I know we were talking about like material conditions, but it all there the economic policy of like the Nordic model is applied to the Nordic conditions and what they have as resource available. It, trying to apply that to other places won't transition easily. And this actually brings me back to Marxism, communism, because I don't know. There's Marxism as Mao Zedong fought, which is MZT. A lot. That's just Marxism, Leninism applied to China's condition, and trying to apply that elsewhere won't work well. So it just
Pretty much like why I'm trying to apply Marxism, Leninism, anywhere else than pre-industrial Russia is pretty stupid.
yeah. I mean, but like I just don't think that Bernie Sanders. I'm not gonna be that person to say he's economically illiterate because I don't believe there is an quote unquote objective economic what is wrong, what is right. It's just what works.
Well, we just
I
lost
mean,
all our capitalist viewers.
I'm not gonna say that he's economically illiterate. I wouldn't even like because he's he just doesn't know what the hell he's doing. Is just he's trying to apply something that shouldn't be applied, and that's it.
It's the Nordic model would fail especially due to the fact that we let pretty much everyone go to college. And not to be a dick here or anything, but not everyone's meant for school.
Yeah,
Some
I
of
mean
you,
that I'm gonna say it. I'm not meant for school. I've never. I mean, I used to do really good in school, but I don't. It's not that I don't have the capability to finish school or anything. I just don't like the schooling environment. It's just not something I like. And even if I could get free college, I wouldn't go because it's just not something I like to be around. I don't like the pressure. I don't like the anxiety. It's just not something I like to do. So it is a fair thing to say that not everyone's meant for school. Some people don't even do well in school all their entire life. And yeah, they're not really made to go to college. And that's just, I mean, I believe that's a fair statement that not everyone is meant to go to college. Not everyone is even meant to graduate high school. So that's
the dude that goes and spends 4 years at a fucking university isn't gonna want to drive fucking door to door every morning and pick up your trash. I mean, let's be perfectly honest here.
yeah. I mean, even then, uh, I would say the guardsmen do it because without them, we would have a lot of trash piling up on the street. So they shouldn't be shamed for doing that job. It's not a terrible job to do. It's not terrible paying. They clean up your shit that you're, and some people even have to drive to the dump to go drop it off, but they do it for you. So I mean, it's not like I don't like shaming people for what job they have because it's what gets them by. Some people will have to dig ditches, other people have to cook your food, and so on and so on.
All right, just a warning. We have about 7 minutes left.
That's fine.
All right. Yeah,
We can wrap it up here if you want, honestly.
I have something to say really quick. I think not going to school, and I think the fact that we have um, necessitated college is a huge part of why our society is in the spot that it is. Most people, I mean, I don't know a whole lot about schooling. The one thing I do know that is if you don't go into a STEM field, you're not going to be doing a whole lot with your career
Yeah.
unless you're really fucking lucky. And I think a huge thing here is we have these menial fucking jobs. Like, I actually have, I feel, a decent example here. Working at a hotel. There are people that go to fucking college to essentially work the front desk at a hotel. Who wants to spend 4 years, Lord knows how much fucking money, to be able to go and work the front desk at a fucking hotel?
Yeah.
We
There's a lot of
we
chances
have
that you're not even gonna get the job you want anyway.
exactly. We have so many people that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get a degree in liberal arts.
Yeah.
We have these completely useless degrees that we require these people to get for fucking jobs that shouldn't require schooling but on-the-job training.
Yeah.
Yet we send these kids to go to school, go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt so that they can never fucking pay it off. And each year it just gets fucking worse. And we tell all these kids, hey, you need to go to school to get a good job. Well, no, you fucking don't. You should be able to go out, get that menial job. And, hey, you want to go to fucking school to get a better paying job and get a job in a field that actually takes an education that's worth spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on? You go right the fuck ahead, but you don't need to go to school and shell out a couple $100,000 so you can be a fucking front
Yeah.
or a sanitation specialist. Or, I mean, we're creating all these names to glorify jobs like this and make them sound more important than they are, to require more of an education or more experience or stuff like that. And most of these jobs nowadays are like, oh, you need this amount of schooling or 5 years experience. Well, how do you expect a 20-year-old kid that can't work until he's 15 and a half and most likely won't get the job because most jobs are like, hey, we want people that are about 18 years old to work here. So how do you expect that now 20-year-old kid that couldn't get a job until he was fucking 18 to have 5 years experience?
Yeah, I was also going to say about the people who fetishize economists. Chances are, if you become an economist, you're not going to be like Rothbard or Friedman or anybody like them. You're more like you're just going to be managing someone's financial account.
Yeah.
That's most likely what you're going to do. You're not going to be this theorist. You're more likely to be advising a business than you are to actually be telling people in the government what to do with the economy, unless you get really good and talk to the right people.
It's like becoming a lawyer. The likelihood that you'll actually become a successful lawyer in a high-paying practicing firm is fucking slim.
Yeah,
we have more kids in law school now than we do have practicing lawyers. So for all that money you're going and shelling out to get that law degree, good fucking luck.
Most lawyers are mostly deal with like people appealing traffic fines or minor drug offenses.
They're court appointed.
Yeah.
They're primarily appointed to the people that can't afford an actual fucking lawyer.
Yeah, I mean.
All right, 2 minutes.
The other option is you get lucky and work with a bunch of pro bono people that get you to some big fucking job. But the likelihood of that actually happening to you.
If you're gonna get like a really good job, it really does depend on who you know. Because again, school is expensive, and getting a really good job does depend on who you know.
And I think that's another part of why schools become so expensive is to become a little bit more exclusive, so that these people that do know people can go straight to their fucking school, pop right out, talk to their dad's best friend, and boom, there's your job.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, the art major popping out of school is like, well, shit, what the fuck do I do with my life now? I want to search for a career job, and your options are go back to school and get a teaching degree.
And a lot of people who get history majors, they usually end up being a teacher anyway. So they want to be all these special historians. Chances are you're not going to be. You're either going to, because I've been told, like, I wanted to get a history major at one point. And I knew this guy who I would call him a family friend. He became a doctor in what was it, something to do with athletics, and he's a baseball coach for high school. And he told me that pretty much the only chances you are going to get with history major is that you're going to be teaching a high school or college class.
Yeah. Yeah, the one guy that I knew that got a history major to teach actually ended up doing the program where you go to a foreign country and teach children there. Yeah. And I think he went to Vietnam or something like that. I can't remember. But he went to some Asian country to teach children, and I think he was teaching English, not history. So...
All right, we're at the 10:45 mark.
All right, folks. I have one more thing to add. I wanted to add this last week, but I completely forgot. Seeing that it is the new year, we're in the 10th day today, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to reach out to those who do watch. For those willing to accept this, that's great. I have a few options for you guys to at least take these challenges. And you can start wherever you want. It's really up to you. But my challenge to you guys is to either cut off your intake of animal products or cut down. Participate in things like Meatless Mondays, where you take a dish and make a dinner, like all your meals on Monday, completely meatless, or if you're really willing to take the plunge, at the very least, go vegetarian for the month and see how that works for you and see what you feel like after that. Because this is the way that we get people to do stuff like this. So I'm challenging you guys to go out and do that. Comment in the comment section if you're going to, and make sure to keep up with us and tell us how it goes. I look forward to all of you douchebags commenting bacon.
Yeah, fuck off. Bacon isn't even that good, so, like...
I had carrot bacon today that blew normal bacon out of the water without the fucking fat content.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you to everyone who watched tonight. Remember, like, subscribe, share the fucking shit out of this stuff. It really helps us. With our whole Christmas break, it kind of boned us on the viewership there, so...
Yeah, and also remember, Stalin and Mao did nothing wrong. But yeah,
Hitler was a pretty cool guy. He was pretty alright.
Yeah. But, I don't know. Try going vegetarian for a month or cut down on it. Also,
And I say vegetarian just due to the fact that going vegan is very intensive. You have to know how to eat. So transitioning to vegetarianism is a great way to get on the road so that you can learn some more before you go.
Yeah.
You don't want to fucking jump in the frozen lake. You put a foot in it.
Yeah, anyway, like, thanks for watching.